When a circuit earns the nickname the Temple of Speed, it's got quite a reputation to live up to. But Monza, between its history and prestige, has got a pretty good claim on it. So put your foot to the floor and do your best not to lift as we get ready to watch round 5 of the Porsche Owners Club series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes, our director Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. If you're one of the few race fans who haven't heard of Monza, let's head to our track guide to learn more about it. Welcome to Monza. This track has a major place in racing history, not just for the legendary races, names, and cars that have been here, but because it was the third purpose-built car racing circuit in the world. It's often discussed and reverenced among fans, and especially by Italians who have nicknamed it the Temple of Speed. In fact, the Ferrari fans here are so famous for their devotion that they have been dubbed the Tifosi and never fail to show up in droves. While the real world offers only 3 feasible layouts to race on due to safety, in iRacing, the inclusion of the oval and the lack of safety concerns gives it a stunning 9 versions drivers can choose from. The modern GP layout is of course the most well-known, with its long history of hosting the Italian Grand Prix. But the oval and combined circuits allow those who thirst for more speed to satiate that craving with its insanely high banking. Indeed, incredible velocities are a staple of just about every version you can race here. Draft battles are not uncommon, no matter which car you're racing. But the inclusion of the chicanes makes using an outbraking maneuver a much more tricky way of overtaking. The circuit is notorious for drivers getting tangled up with each other while running side by side in these slow and cumbersome corners. In fact, one of the greatest dangers for drivers is the first few laps when the field is still clumped together and attempting to navigate them 2 and 3 wide. While there are other modern circuits with high-speed straights, the fact that Monza sits inside the Royal Park just north of Milan and is still tightly lined with trees heightens the sense of speed here. All in all, Monza is unmatched in its history, thrills, and great racing. Its significance in motorsports history and culture is sure to be unchallenged for years. Well, it's not quite F1 cars, but definitely some cars, Joey, that will be getting some speed.
Yeah, between the GTPs and those GT cars, it will be very fast around this place. Monza, 11 turns, 3.6 miles in length, and it is all about the top speed here. You also have to be very, very confident on those brakes because you see several of those chicanes. The first 2 chicanes, you got to slow down a little bit more than that Ascari chicane known as turns 8, 9, and 10. But the last 4 corners, I'm talking about Ascari and the Parabolica, they definitely throw the setup a little bit for a loop. Lots of switchbacks through that 8, 9, 10, and then Parabolica, more of a medium speed corner where you want a little bit more of the downforce, but you trimmed it all off for the straightaways here. It's going to be a very interesting race around Monza.
And on paper, they're calling it Alboreto now, but I'm with you. It's Parabolica to me still these days. But before we talk about quarter names, let's talk about our sponsors, which include Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Game Changer Wealth, helping you become a game changer with wealth. Contact them today at GameChangerBR.com or at 225-664-2565. Now, as for the championship, this has been interesting with the 2 different series that we've got running, classes that we've got running at the same time. BJ Fulton leading right now over Michael Johnson. Just trying to see if he can fight back a little bit. Sagar Dhawan is currently sitting very closely as well. In fact, you go through those 2nd through 4th places, and they've only got 2 points between each of them, with Fulton at that 7-point gap up at the top, kind of separate himself, but not by much. Then it's a bit of a jump back to drivers such as Heindel, Scott, Roper, and they're on down. But there's a lot of seasons still to go, so we could see that jumble, especially with them getting accustomed to that GTP. What about in the GT3 class?
It's been Matt Steele leading the way narrowly over Doug Boccignone. However, Matt has just won 3 in a row the last couple of races back here, so you're going to have to knock that guy off at the top of the podium. Like I said, Doug sitting there in 2nd. Jeff Schulam, 15 points back in 3rd. Larry Haas in 4th with Mark Rondeau narrowly, only 1 point behind Larry Haas there in 5th place. John Momeyer, Federico Del Toro, Robert Leclerc, and Jim Slavic have been the 9 GT cars that have been taking place so far.
As for today's race, it's standard fare for this series. It's going to be a 30-minute event. We'll have our first enduro of the season next time out, so stay tuned for that one. It is open setup this time, which is new-ish for this series. They've had it before in the past, but they've switched back after quite a while spent on the fixed setups. And as we mentioned earlier, this is round 5 out of 13 total in the season. So should be a fun and relatively quick race out here. Lap is a little bit long considering how fast they're going, over a minute and a half even for these GTPs. So I'm not sure how much traffic will really play into it, especially considering they've got lots of long straights, Joey, to have to deal with it if they do come in contact.
It is a very, very fast track out here. Like you said, about a minute and a half for the GTPs. The GT3 cars doing, call it minute 49 is looking like what their qualifying times are, drifting off into the minute 50s a little bit later in the pack there. But I'm going to be really interested to see how the two classes play along in the race. With 30 minutes, there's plenty of time, especially with the long straightaways here for those GTP cars to catch the GT cars probably twice.
And as we said, the straightaways allows them a relatively easier opportunity to overtake those slower cars in a straight line. But if they catch them in the chicane, that can be difficult, as we watch AJ Roper currently sitting second on the timing sheets right now, off by about 0.2 of a second from the pole of Dylan Scott, and only 18 thousandths quicker than BJ Fulton in behind of it. Here you see him have to take the long way around through Curva Grande and up to the Della Rosa chicane.
It's just a matter of a few tenths that are separating really the top 7, top 8 in that GTP class. Will Castillo's the only car. Roper bouncing it off of the curbs there. Sorry to interrupt my own point, but is going to have to abandon that qualifying lap. And I was just saying how close the top 7 really are. Only about 3/4 of a second separating those cars.
Michael Johnson, off of his first win of the season last time out here in the prototypes, going to try and repeat that, but he's starting from 4th right now, and he's not known for the best of qualifying laps usually, but we'll see if these last minute and a half worth of laps will give him the chance to try and get higher up on the order. That one does not, as it's not quicker. This will be his last attempt now.
But did you see what Michael was doing right there? Since we are multi-class and it is an open qualifying session, he was trying to draft off of the back of that GT car, and the draft is so important here. I mentioned how close the times were. If you can get a sniff of that draft down to 1, maybe 2, or even 3 of the straightaways, that could be the time difference.
Exactly. Now, he's not showing his improved so far in this lap, although he is close to his best right now. He needs about 0.4 of a second to catch Dylan Scott up on the pole. There you see him now. Looks like actually he's following him. So Dylan will be able to get kind of the last answer after Michael Johnson has crossed the line. But he's also showing even worse, actually a full second off of his best time. So I don't think Dylan Scott's going to improve.
No, and he just had to take a little bit of evasive action, avoiding that GT car coming back out on the track. So jump over to the GT class. This is the 710 of Robert Leclerc coming through turn number 11. You make sure you slow the car down at the beginning half of the corner, and then you got to get on the throttle as soon as possible. I know it seems to last forever, but you are 100% throttle well before the apex there. Looks like he is going to stay 5th with a 150.143.
He's the first to take the checkered flag, so he's done for the day. Also, I want to give him a quick nod for the Mr. Sparkle paint scheme. That is definitely one of my favorite Simpsons references. As Johnson crosses the line, he does not improve. He is 4th at best on the start of this one, but at least it's relatively easy to pass here compared to some other places.
See what John Momeyer puts down. He has yet to actually lay down a lap here. And that doesn't look like that one is going to qualify him as well. So the number 6 car is going to be starting from the back of that GT field.
Interestingly, that was the last of our cars that could set a time. Everybody else has parked it, so it's going to end our qualifying a little bit earlier. We'll go through the starting order later on, but now we have some time to reflect on what we've got out there. Matt Steele up on the top of the GT1 class. Not too great of a shock, but we'll see whether or not he can back up the hat trick of wins that he's set in all 3 rounds that he's shown up this season.
We watch John Momeyer just kind of take a little bit of extra practice, pull it off to the side of the road, and I think that's going to be the last of the cars. And reason why he didn't actually put down that qualifying time. Here in iRacing, if you have an incident point in those qualifying laps, pretty much throw it out the window. It's got to be a perfectly clean lap.
And it's easier than you think when you've got that paved runoff like this circuit has, where the drivers can just put the wheels a little too far off of what is considered the racing surface. And it doesn't matter if it's an inch or a mile. Once you're over, and the lap is gone. Nothing you can do to bring it back. So that's why we saw a few drivers struggle. Michael Bolton, one of those that didn't set a time either. But we've got a few drivers that might have to climb through the field. Dustin Heindel's been quicker than last season, and he's starting 7th, so he might have some work to do from there.
Only about 0.8 of a second off of Dylan Scott up top there as well. So if there's going to be one caveat about Monza, there's going to be opportunities for these guys in the back to stay in the draft pack.
Well, and you got to watch out on lap 1. Even though we've got a rolling start, it can get a bit treacherous into that Rettifilo chicane. Let's go through our starting order and bring you the grid. Dylan Scott going to be starting on the pole for this one with AJ Roper in 2nd. BJ Fulton starts P3. Michael Johnson on the outside of that 2nd row. Then it's Jad Duncan starting 5th today, followed by Ezra Kelderman in 6th. Unusual to see him that far down. Dustin Heindel starting 7th and Will Castillo 8th. Michael Bolton, as we mentioned, failed to set a time. He'll start tail end Charlie on the GTPs.
And then in the GT field, Matt Steele is your pole sitter. Next to him is going to be Federico Del Toro in 2nd. Mark Rondeau starting in 3rd. Doug Boccignone in 4th. Robert Clare 5th. Jeffrey Shulam 6th. Jim Garamani in 7th. And John Momeyer in 8th.
17 cars and 2 different classes going to be competing here today. Like we said, there's that rolling start, so they'll get a little bit of a half a pace lap, really, maybe a little bit less than that, as they'll start just underneath the oval and head through Ascari. Pretty warm track, though, at 98 Fahrenheit, 37 Celsius on the surface today. And while this track isn't known for chewing up tires, I can't imagine that's going to help trying to get the braking lined up for the chicanes.
I think whenever we talk about higher track temperatures, it's just lower grip, especially if you've been doing practice in a lower temperature, whether it be ambient or even overcast conditions. Those lower temperatures just give the driver a little bit more confidence.
So put yourself in the driver's seat here, Joey. You're coming up to that first chicane on lap 1. How do you want to position yourself? Say you're stuck in one of the worst case scenarios. You're in the middle of the pack. You don't have many places to escape. Where do you want to be?
I think if I'm in a GTP car, especially with how tricky the brake bias can be and that electric rear wheel braking type of deal system that they've got, I would want to be cautious going onto the brakes with cold tires and a cold brain going into the first chicane. I want to concentrate on the exit of turn number 2, because if people go blasted in there, well, guess what? They're going to have to give up a slowdown, maybe even have contact. I want to focus on the exit of turn number 2, and then from there, it's damage limitation. Make sure you avoid other people's cars as you go around that long curving turn number 3.
All right, we'll see if anybody takes your advice, because we're coming up to Parabolica here, and soon the pace car will release them. I definitely see a few of them kind of braking and accelerating to try and get some heat, both in the tire carcass as well as into the brakes themselves. See if that pays dividends. And there are the GT1s also going to do a bit of a split start. They said that they'll try and give them some space to ensure that they don't trip over the GTPs if something should happen to them. There goes the pace car. Now control is given over to AJ Roper. Usually it holds them for a little bit here, since the start line is typically a little farther down for standing starts, and they are holding them for quite some time. There it is. Green flag is out, and Roper looks like he does not go. Dylan Scott shoots up ahead as they head down to the braking of the first corner. Everybody trying to take it as deep as they can. And from the back, it looks like Dustin Heindel is going to be able to overtake a couple cars as they weave their way through. It is all good for the GTPs. What about the GT1s?
They are directly behind those prototypes. Matt Steele got a great launch and leads them through the first chicane. It's Mark Rondeau that's gone up one position. He's sitting in that second car in the gray spot. That number 11 overtook Federico Del Toro in turn number 1 and 2.
Facignone, unfortunately unable to do anything. And we got a car cutting across. That was Dustin Heindel, I think, in the dark black and blue machine. Oh, and almost causes some problems with Castillo, Duncan, and Kelderman, excuse me. Kelderman almost falling to the back of that group. Now up the inside of Heindel. That's Will Castillo in the orange machine. Couldn't get it done.
Heading to Ascari for the first time. Look at this. We've got about 5 prototypes, and they're going to push the limit side by side. Something's going to have to give here. Looks like Will Castillo is not going to push that limit here. Focus on the exit. I think that's the smart thing. The setup is so twitchy on that left-right weight transfer. You got to get down the straightaway.
2 distinct trains forming. You could see Dylan Scott, despite gapping them at the very start, has been run down already. Slipstream is going to make it tough to try and break that car from behind you. Meanwhile, looking at John Momeyer, up to 6th position, 2 spots gained since the start of this race, but Jeffrey Shulam has gone down 2.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was in that Ascari chicane. He made contact with the wall, didn't make any contact with any other car, so I'm sure he's going to get back trucking out there as Will Castillo is going to let Ezra Kelderman slide to the inside, and now almost door banging on the exit. It's a drag race.
Kelderman was usually in contention for wins when it was just those what were GT3 cars. They're now being classified as GT1. But it's kind of surprising to see him fighting this far back. He's going to easily outbrake Castillo up into the second chicane, and that puts him into 7th now.
Just got to take a deep breath now that we're all kind of single file, but no, forget that. We're going to look at the replay. Let's see what happened to Dustin Heindel. I believe this was the second chicane, and if you hit this first speed bump just right, can become sort of an airplane for a little while. Almost misses the brake zone. In fact, he does miss the brake zone, but great avoidance not to take anybody else out.
My goodness, he threaded the needle, and everybody else is very heads up in that situation. It could have gone a lot worse. Just a note, if you see AJ Roper suddenly down in 9th, he had an off in the first Lesmo, so that's why he's dropped far backwards. Castillo still not letting Kelderman go, staying glued to that rear wing.
190 miles an hour. Oh, and then he just loses it on the brakes in the parabolica. He got to hold him. Oh, my goodness. That was so close. Michael Bolton snuck his way through.
I think there was the lightest of touches with the side of Bolton's car, but I'm not entirely sure, as Jad Duncan now takes the fastest lap of the race. Meanwhile, Castillo is going to try and come back on AJ Roper after he had an incident that same lap. So, unfortunately, the 2 drivers that made mistakes now squabbling over scraps.
I mentioned that rear brake system on the pace lap. It can be a little bit tricky, and in the GTP cars, it can just kind of cause an early lockup. Wouldn't be surprised if that's what we saw out of Will Castillo as Matt Steele continues to lead the way here from the pole position. He's got about 3/4 of a second gap over Mark Rondeau there in 2nd place, and Federico Del Toro sitting in 3rd.
Watching from on board with Jad Duncan here. And there is, wow, that looks a way closer from on board the number 83.
I was surprised that he didn't hit anybody. I thought that he went over the curb and went airborne, but no, he just, like you said, threaded the needle between multiple cars.
Back up to BJ Fulton. We got a battle for the lead here in the GTPs. He's kind of stalking him coming down into the parabolica. Shows himself in the mirror, but decides not to try for it. Maybe waiting for the main straight. This is a much longer straightaway. Very powerful slipstream between them. And he's got it. Look at how much he's towing him in now.
I think the only thing that he might not have is if our lead car, Dylan Scott, has just trimmed the thing out, which it seems like he has. I saw 193 miles an hour from the leader, but he overshoots it on the brake zone, and now actually BJ Fulton has to check himself up before he gets into the back of the leader. That's not the way you want to pass, but I think Dylan Scott, wicked fast on a straight line. Here comes Fulton with a run into the second chicane.
Yeah, without that downforce, you're not braking very late either. They're going to be side by side into the corner. Somehow still, Dylan Scott will rebuff him again, and Fulton cannot make it stick. He once again thinks about it, this time into the Lesmo, but that's just not a long enough straight.
You saw how much better the 82 was at putting the power down. He just was able to launch off of the corners, but you got to be careful. You do too much battling, and Michael Johnson in that purple number 9 is bringing his whole crew of party friends with him.
Yeah, that's a good point. They had a bit of a breakaway, but it's starting to cut back down. So AJ Roper with his incident. Did he get help? Oh, it wasn't a mistake. I didn't realize he got helped out there, and I believe that was Johnson.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to not identify that bright purple car is. This is the lead battle. Check this out. Oh my goodness, and the leader goes spinning. Contact between the two. BJ Fulton's going to stay on the track, but Dustin Heindel is off on the side in the gravel with damage.
And Michael Johnson is now your new leader because of it. Remember, he won last race. Could he make it back-to-back here, or does he have a penalty potentially coming his way for the contact? Oh, things getting dicey. Kelderman gets blocked coming down into the first chicane as we are Noah's Ark 2x2 into the corner.
Let's see who gets the drive off. It's everybody kind of getting choked up, and looks like Dustin Heindel is going to get the launch off of the corner all the way back from starting in 7th place up into 2nd.
An impressive drive. We're only on lap 5 with 23 minutes left to go. Ezra Kelderman able to get by Jad Duncan with that one as they break into the second chicane. I don't think this one is over, though. We've seen how much the draft has allowed cars to really re-attack if they get overtaken.
Also, we see all of our lead cars pretty much in the top 3 that started. They're kind of shuffled back with the exception of BJ Fulton, who's still currently running in 3rd. So I'm looking at AJ Roper. I'm looking at Dylan Scott. Are they going to be able to come back? Because it's not that they're way off the tail end of the pack. They can still make it up.
Well, Matt Steele and his Roxy paint scheme has only got about half a second over Mark Rondeau currently, so he hasn't been able to drop him. But Rondeau isn't nearly close enough. Taking a look back at Leclerc, he's got Doug Boccignone just in front of him, both actually exactly where they started this race.
Yeah, there hasn't been too much movement in terms of positions. John Momeyer here has gone up a couple positions, and new name that I've seen this season, Jim Garamani here in this blue and black number 163. He's the one that's chasing John Momeyer.
And I think we've seen Jim in previous seasons. I'm racking my brains a little bit. I'll have to double check. But I'm pretty sure I've seen that name before. Just like you said, I don't think he's been around this season quite yet. That was deep there from John. And a little too deep. He goes off into the gravel.
Garamani's just going to be able to get that place. He's long ways up the road, though, is 5th place of Robert Leclerc as we jump back. This is that GT fight, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Michael Johnson is just out of frame. He's trying to run away as fast as possible, but the lap times are pretty even between these top 5.
If they could play a little leapfrog to try and get him back close enough that they could make this a fight for the win, or are they even willing to fight one or work with one another to try and catch him? We saw a little bit of the flash of the lights from Michael Johnson. I think maybe he knows he's been on camera here leading this race.
I also see a GT car just in front of him. I don't think that, he got around on the exit, so Michael Johnson didn't get held up through Ascari chicane, and I think that's what he was focused on, is didn't want that momentum blocked. But here we go. Here's an opportunity. BJ Fulton's not going to use the GT car as a pick. Everybody's going to slide down to the inside. A couple of close moments, but everybody makes it way through.
So Johnson across the line last lap at a 36.5 for him. Heindel 36.4, mildly faster. Not enough that they're going to catch him very quickly, but depends on if they can keep that up. And now they're coming across more traffic. This is going to get really intense here. Kelderman trying to take advantage of it as everybody in front of him has to really tiptoe their way around the cars.
Through this long curving turn number 3, they get by that other GT car. That was a pretty close moment. It kind of allowed Dustin Heindel to stretch it out maybe 1 car length, but it's Kelderman all over the back of BJ Fulton. I'm actually very impressed with how well-mannered these drivers are being right now, because I feel like they're close enough to make lunges going into the chicanes, but they're staying pretty on their toes.
I do like what I've been seeing with the drivers trying to make sure that they don't ruin the other class's race, or their own for that matter. Since everybody's got their own to run here. Mark Rondeau still chasing on Steele. We've got a bit of a replay between Baccignone and Leclerc. So coming into Parabolica, what happens here?
I saw Robert in the pits. Oh, just a huge loose moment and into the tires. Remember how I said the last 4 corners, 8, 9, 10 plus Parabolica, kind of throws the setups for a loop, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah, we've seen a number of drivers certainly struggle through there. These 3, though, are willing to share the track and coming onto the main straight once again. It's back to the dogfights, all picking up speed over 180 miles an hour, and they're not even in the braking zone yet. Big speed coming from Kelderman. That gets him past Dustin Heindel, but Heindel fights back under the braking. He'll get back to side by side. Looks to cut him off, can't quite do it yet. Now he out accelerates him off the corner, and he's back to 3rd.
He did a good job of squaring up turn number 2 to get the launch off, but now the benefit goes to Kelderman in that slipstream. Also, watch out for Jad Duncan. Let's see if Kelderman makes a move. He's been thinking twice about it going into the 2nd chicane. He usually presents the car into the 1st chicane, but maybe he's a little bit more confident on the brakes going in there versus his brake marker going into turn 4.
And last lap, it was about half a second quicker for Johnson over that group, but he just got held up by Doug Baccignone, so I think that might cut down a bit this lap. There definitely is looking like a bit of ebb and flow as the 2 classes try to navigate one another. Dustin Heindel, what can he do to hold back Kelderman? Kelderman lifts, though. He definitely could have had a go at things.
Absolutely. I think he's being very well-mannered, as well as a lot of these other drivers, but I'm going to point something out here because 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th are the fastest GTP cars on the racetrack right now.
Interesting. So they're kind of giving away a little bit of time here with all the fighting going on. Heindel riding the rim, and the GT3 car moves off to the side to get out of the way. This is going to give a chance to Jad Duncan. He now has the inside of all 3 of them. Are we going to go 3 wide into the chicane, or is somebody going to give up the ghost? It looks like Heindel has to back off of that one, and still going for it. Ezra Kelderman is impressive when he gets on the brakes.
Yeah, but here's our 2 GT leaders. Here's Rondeau and Steele. They're going to get by him. Just stay to the inside. Let these faster prototypes just drive right on by. So it's Kelderman that's leading this little train. Directly in front is Jad Duncan from that car we were riding on board. And here in the 3, 4, 5 chicane. And looks like Jad Duncan actually bounced up over the curve.
So it looked like a lot of them were there. Whoa! My goodness. I can't believe everybody's managed to keep things together in all of this. It is a little bit of chaos out there, which is more than I expected, frankly. I thought that this would be relatively uneventful in terms of traffic, but it has been just a constant struggle.
I love it. I love it, Joe. It's fantastic. It is chaos, and we're going to see it a whole another time because look at the clock. We're not even halfway. I know we're approaching halfway, but that means the prototypes, they're going to be coming through the GT field again before the checkered flag falls.
Rondeau knows he's close to Steele, but if he starts fighting him, Federico Del Toro's pretty close at about 2 seconds behind them. Dustin Heindel and AJ Roper going to swap positions. AJ up to 5th. But is he going to give it right back? Because look at Dustin. He's got a tow.
Dustin's been very aggressive on the brakes going into one. He's going to present the car on driver's right, but AJ just takes it in so deep. He's able to get the car woed up as well as he's going to be able to move up into what is 5th place.
Matt Steele holding on to the lead. And as you can see, Will Castillo trying to run away from them. Oh, that is tight up to the bumper. Rondeau almost making contact with Matt Steele through the first chicane. Checking to see if they've got any more prototypes, and it looks like no, they're clear for a while now.
Just going to be amongst themselves, so kind of turn off that rear view mirror if you're Mark Rondeau at this point. Just focus on if there's a relative creeping up in that black box and go to work. See if you can knock Matt Steele off of the racing line a little bit and maybe steal a win away. We had mentioned Matt Steele in this pink number 2 has won the previous 3. He's looking to make it 4 in a row.
Certainly has been a revelation in the GT1s. As others are having trouble trying to dethrone him. But Rondeau's in a good position this race. He's never been that far away from that bright pink car. And again, in the background, you can just see Federico Del Toro being a bit of a question mark about whether or not he will become a factor.
Coming up on a slow prototype. You saw the gravel dust right there. I think Dylan Scott is finally back up to speed. So these cars aren't going to get interfered at all, but they were definitely coming up on a prototype that was sitting off to the side of the racetrack. That's just the opportunity that Mark Rondeau is looking to have come up and present themselves, and Matt Steele doesn't want to have happen.
Remember, Dylan Scott was involved in that incident earlier on, so watch this, because I think this is solo. Oh, it gets loose, and then he just loses control of it. I wonder if his car is not 100%.
It's the setups, Joe. It's just everybody trims it out so much for Monza. They try to take out wing when you don't need to. Yes, you want it as fast as possible on the top end, but it still has to be stable through Ascari as well as Parabolica. You look at all the other corners on the racetrack, they're mechanical grip corners. And then you get into Ascari, which is very high speed in terms of a chicane, and Parabolica as well, which is, I would call it more on the medium to high speed corner. And that's when you need the downforce, and guess what? It's not there.
Can't just mash that throttle down like you do on the straightaways, that's for sure. Scott's going to head into pit lane, maybe to get a few repairs, but unfortunately there's not much he can do to the setup from here, except change a couple tire pressures. Ezra Kelderman still giving chase on BJ Fulton. This is for 2nd place. And in fact, yeah, Ezra has dropped Jad Duncan, Dustin Heindel, AJ Roper. And Ezra's looking pretty quick here. If he can get by Fulton, does he have the pace to catch Johnson?
I think so, and I think AJ Roper back there in 5th place is close enough to do the same. They're both doing low 35s right now, and so we're going to see, Jim Garamani having problems. This is that turn 4 and 5. I don't see another car involved, although looks like John Momeyer is going up there to try to catch his buddy taking the shortcut route.
Just showing him some sympathy, and off goes Garamani. Thankfully does not spit it across the track into the walls there. Easy to do if you go wide coming off the first Lesmo. Ooh, Jad Duncan on Ezra Kelderman. He was on the attack just moments ago. Now he's got to switch to defense. Long way around. Still manages to hold off Jad. And now he gets checked up by Leclerc. Has to try and take his time. And that worked out well for Ezra, although it didn't look like it would at first.
It worked out the best for this orange car. Look at, holy smokes, AJ Roper just joined the scene, and he is that 3rd car in line. He's going to look to capitalize through this Ascari chicane. Just keep the car nice and stable, plant the throttle on the exit. The one thing, Jad Duncan is also getting the slipstream from Kelderman, and you see that gap start to grow, that middle car really getting pulled along.
Down into the braking of the final corner once again. They're about 2 seconds, 3 seconds back from P2 now, when they were right on top of him before. Michael Bolton, a nice little fight with Heindel for that 6th position. You can see it's getting side by side in front of them, coming down to the first chicane between Jad Duncan and AJ Roper, and Roper's going to take P4.
Just watching AJ Roper in this orange 07, he is very good on the brakes going into that turn 1 chicane. He doesn't really need to be off of the racing line too much. Most people have gone defensive, and he's just stuck to driver's left, and he uses all that rubber on the concrete, just maximum performance. Now he's right on the back, hunting down a podium.
For some reason, Rondeau was in pit lane, and he's taken a spare car. He must have had some kind of incident out there for him to have done that, because I think this is a little too early for having too many incidents, although, I mean, not impossible, but I don't know why he would take a spare car if he was given a drive-through.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one either. It might just be force of habit that if you're going to come down pit lane, go grab a glass of water or something. But maybe this is going to be it here, Joe. Yeah, here's Mark Rondeau on the replay. This is the first Lesmo getting a little bit tight on the apex, spits him out in the gravel, and there's the wall hit on driver's right.
Yeah, like I said, that can often happen out of that corner. Just going a little bit too wide. Michael Bolton versus Dustin Heindel coming through the final turn. And right in the rim for Bolton as well. And he uses it to great effect. He goes the long way around to take P6. Unfortunately, he's just going to give the slipstream right back to Dustin.
Let's see if Dustin can do anything. He's been very late on the brakes into one. And sure enough, there he goes again, forcing Michael Bolton to take it to the absolute latest brake marker that he could. But they both got it slowed down. And now it's the drive off on this long turn number 3. Get around the GT car, and I do think that Michael Bolton's going to take off here.
Yeah, I suspect he's looked pretty quick. Unfortunately, just can't seem to get away from all the fun in the process. And like we said, it's easy for those behind you to use the slipstream to try and keep up with you and give you a bit of hassle. Or if you're Dustin Heindel, you can flash the lights to hassle him.
So, I know that we're watching this for kind of 6th and 7th place back here, but we're closing down to about 7.5 minutes left. I've been watching the lap times. BJ Fulton is closing in on Michael Johnson. Ezra Gelderman is closing in on BJ Fulton. You see Jad Duncan here. He's the caboose of the train. He's in 5th place right behind AJ Roper, who I think is the fastest of the group. Well, never mind. I take that back.
Coming down to the braking, Jad Duncan moves into 4th. AJ Roper down to 5th. And again, a lot of these drivers have been kind of switching back and forth. I feel like if they would focus forward on Johnson, they could catch him.
And that had to have been a slowdown out of AJ Roper. That lap time was several seconds off of what he usually has been doing. And just the way that he gave that up between turns 10 and 11 just kind of screams that he had to do a slowdown from cutting an apex curve.
Interesting to note, Fulton was 0.7 of a second quicker than Johnson that last lap. He is absolutely chopping away at that lead if that keeps up. Although it could have been a little bit of traffic, as we see right here, because Johnson just had to deal with Boccignone.
Yes, and in fact, it had really helped BJ Fulton as well as Ezra Kelderman. So call it the top 3 in GTP as John Momeyer is coming through. I think he just got a drive-through penalty back here in the 8th place.
Absolutely did. So that is those track limits that we were talking about. To hit it too many times, that's when we're talking about those incident limits, and you have to serve that drive-through. This is going to be close coming down the chicane. AJ Roper wins that game of chicken.
So AJ Roper has got the 2nd fastest lap time that I see at a 1:45.2. Does he have enough time to close in, call it that 3 seconds that you see on the screen right now, to get a podium finish?
That's a big maybe for me. Oh, well, not when you do stuff like that.
Yeah, I just lost it another moment going into the parabolica for a car.
So another 5/10 that BJ Fulton has cut down on Michael Johnson in the meantime. And he's pulling along Ezra Kelderman. A 3-car battle for the lead about to happen here with a couple of laps left for us. This could be a real thriller at the end.
The landscape has changed for Michael Johnson, hasn't it? He's just been able to do laps out front without any pressure. I'm sure that he's been trying to kind of minimize his lap time, go as fast as possible, but now the pressure is on because they're in the mirror.
Exactly. And we've seen Michael Johnson at times be very good dealing with that pressure in the mirror, and sometimes he buckles. It's kind of a question mark. Which Michael do we have today?
Going to have to deal with the GT car. He gets out of the second Lesmo. Nice actually drafts really late up to that GT car. So, Joe, to your point, I think that he's already feeling the heat.
I'd say so. He was trying to do what he could. And coming up to Matt Steele, this is our leader in the GT1s. He's going to get a decent run, but he hesitates for a second on which way to go and definitely picks a little bit of the narrow side to go by. Kelderman has a much easier decision. Now, BJ Fulton is officially there.
I think that Michael Johnson had a big loose moment coming out of that turn 10 Ascari chicane, and that's what really killed all of the momentum. So like you said, BJ Fulton firmly in the draft. Let's look at these top speeds. Fulton already closed it in on the front straightaway. Johnson going right in the middle of the road, fading back to the racing line, realizing that BJ wasn't quite close enough.
Does he have the top end speed? That's the other thing in this. Is Michael Johnson done enough to give himself the top speed and make it difficult to try and overtake? Because you can be as close as you want, but if you're a dead weight in a straight line, then you're going to have a hard time executing.
Now I was comparing at those top speeds. They both did 181 miles an hour before getting on the brakes in turn number 4. I don't think that's a very good data point. I think it's better going into turn 11 or into turn number 1. But I do think that Michael Johnson, just looking at him on the front straightaway, has a strong car on a straight line.
That's what I'm thinking too. And we know he has years of experience, but this time he's slow coming off of the second Lesmo as they get ready to brake coming into Ascari chicane. He brakes as deep as he can. BJ Fulton backs out of it. Johnson will hold on to the lead, but it is going to be 2 to go at the line.
Kelderman can have an opportunity going into the Parabolica. Let's see if he pushes the issue on BJ Fulton. He's right in the middle of the road. Kelderman showing the nose, says, no, you know what? Maybe if I stay right here in third place, I have a chance at the win.
I was just going to say, you fancy some Talladega-style bump drafting here? Is he maybe going to...
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's see if he does it. He's pulling up to him. Or is he going to go on the attack? Nope, he's going to attack. He doesn't want to play those games. He's going to try and go and get him himself, and he's going to be fully ahead by the time they get to the braking, and now he's in P2.
It's crucial that he cleared him in the brake zone because you can't get tripped up on that corner exit there. It's got to be a square launch off of the corner because you have to keep up with Michael Johnson. He's 0.8 out in front and actually starting to grow that gap just a touch.
I know a lot of the focus has been on the GTPs this race, but Matt Steele is still leading, although it's not very close down in the GT cars. Federico Del Toro, 3.6 seconds back. So this is where the action is.
And look at this. We've got a slow GT car. This is going to cause chaos. Do all 3 GTPs get to the inside of the second Lesmo? Yes, almost contact between Kelderman and Johnson. There goes BJ Fulton back into second.
And what a save from Kelderman. All kinds of sideways going through the corner. But this is costing them. White flag is out next time. They cannot dilly-dally. They've got to be on top of them.
I think this is Michael Johnson's worst area of the racetrack, though. Does he get off of turn number 10? No, he struggles again. Look at BJ Fulton already closing it in on this straightaway.
Coming down to the last corner once again here. He's already reeled him in, but he goes a little bit wide, maybe getting too aggressive coming into Parabolica. Gives up track position at a crucial moment. Look at how many car lengths are between himself and Michael Johnson.
Does Kelderman fight? Because if it's a fight between Fulton and Kelderman, and there he goes into the back of Fulton. Can he get the car stopped now? No, he goes through the chicane. He's going to have to give up a time penalty. All Michael Johnson is going to have to do is keep it on the racetrack.
That may have ended it right there, and I think Kelderman maybe just eased up because he felt guilty about taking the spot from Fulton in that manner. Now he's going to breeze by him as BJ has to give the time back.
Yeah, and I think that I'm going to check here. Looks like BJ Fulton still has to give back some time slowdown, so he's going to continue to slow down. But I'm also seeing a black flag, a slowdown for Ezra Kelderman. Are you seeing that as well?
I am as well. This is bizarre. Where did he cut the course? He must have maybe gone a little bit too far inside one of the apexes. Michael Johnson has got to be grinning ear to ear. When he was under attack from two different cars, they tripped over each other and have handed it to him on a silver platter.
He's just got to navigate through one more corner, through Ascari, and then through Parabolica. He does have GT cars. You see him flashing the lights. He should be able to get clear, but they're side by side in front of him.
Oh, this is not good. And he's going to be able to get by one, but this slows him up at a crucial time. If he can just get by the other, there he goes. Michael Johnson will escape and take the victory here today in round 5.
My goodness, Robert Leclerc deciding to go too wide with Jim Garamani for 6th place. Certainly caused a little bit of heart failure with Michael Johnson, but he manages to hang on to the win. This is Matt Steele in that Roxy Pink number 2. He's only got to navigate one more corner, and he'll collect 4 in a row.
Seems nobody can stop this number 2 machine. Federico Del Toro, though, to his credit, only about 2.7 seconds back. There he is on your screen in the background. So he kept him honest. Just needs maybe a bit more speed to try and challenge him for the win. Matt Steele in the GT1 class will take victory today in Monza. Well, we wanted a good race. Oh, go ahead.
Yes. I was just going to say, Federico Del Toro here, he was able to close it in, and this is his highest finish of the season as well in 2nd.
We wanted a good race, and I'd say we got a good race. That was amazing stuff out there.
It was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. I thought that coming into Monza with 2 different classes might be a little bit chaotic, and it proved so, but for the most part, everybody played nice. There were some really tense moments, but that's going to happen in multi-class racing.
So Rondeau will have to settle for 4th in the end. Schulem comes in behind him to get a top 5, and I think maybe Momeyer is going to be our last car across the line here. And we're hearing he has indeed actually finished already, so Schulem will be our last car and wrap up our field. Let's go through our finishing order and definitely look at the timing on our top 4 here for our GTPs. Less than 2 seconds apart between 1st to 4th. They bunched up a ton at the end, but Johnson is your victor over Kelderman in 2nd and BJ Fulton finishing 3rd. Jad Duncan was P4. Then you go back to AJ Roper getting a top 5, although he started on the front row, so I don't think he'll be satisfied with that. Michael Bolton was 6th. Dustin Heindel winds up where he started in 7th. And then Will Castillo in 8th with Dylan Scott, a DNF today in the GTPs, 9 laps down.
4 in a row for Matt Steele. Winner, winner, chicken dinner for that number 2. Federico Del Toro with his best finish of the season so far in 2nd. Doug Bacchignon finishing in 3rd with Mark Rondeau in 4th. Jeff Schulem in 5th. Robert Leclerc, unfortunately, 1 lap down. Jim Garamani, 1 lap down as well. Same thing with John Momeyer finishing in 8th place.
That's going to take us to our winners here today, including Michael Johnson, ready to chat about his victory, his 2nd in a row here this season. Michael, congratulations on the win. And you definitely worked for that one. You had to keep the pace up and keep them behind you. But last lap, it looks like they kind of did the work for you. Oh, not sure if we have Michael mic'd up.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
There we gotcha.
It's that a good old mute button. Yeah, the traffic was interesting, and I think the traffic finally played into my favor on that last lap. So I timed coming up on, I forgot who it was. It was one of the GT3s, and I timed my exit so I could just squeak by and hopefully open up a little bit of a gap. And I think BJ or somebody might have gotten a little bit of an off track or a slowdown. But yeah, the traffic was a lot of fun, and I think that's what ultimately, well, it hindered me a lot through the middle of the race, but towards the end, it actually worked out in my favor.
Almost cost you at the very last corner. What kind of stress levels were you experiencing coming up to the line there?
It wasn't that bad. So I came up, and as we had come out of the Ascari, I was coming up, and I'm like, okay, and you may have saw I flashed my lights, but they didn't see me. It was very clear when they went too wide. They had no clue I was there. So I looked at my rear view and my gap to see, and it was still like 2 seconds, and I was like, well, I can just ride the corner through with them. And then they split, and I was like, I can't wait, I gotta go. And I just went through and went to the finish line from there.
Yeah, I'd say you couldn't have afforded to wait because it was 2 seconds from you back to fourth place across the line. But congratulations on the win. That was a well-earned victory today.
Thank you very much. It was a lot of fun, and thank you guys for putting on a great show that I'm about to go watch now.
All right, enjoy, and I think you will. But one man that's definitely been enjoying things is Matt Steele. Joey has caught up with our GT1 winner.
Yeah, Matt Steele, congratulations. 4 in a row. I think that's called domination.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a fun run so far. This one was a lot of work. I had Mark right on my tail for a good 10 laps or so. I just couldn't gap and get away from him, so I just had to I knew it'd be tough for him to pass, so I just had to remain calm and just focus on putting in clean laps, and eventually was able to build up a gap. But yeah, no, this one was tough. I think the whole field was really nice and tight, and definitely had to work for this one.
Let's talk about that battle between you and Mark out there. Where did you feel that he was stronger? Was he just able to hang out in the draft, or was it maybe confidence on the brakes? Where did you feel that he was able to close that gap?
I feel like it was maybe a little bit of draft and just a little bit like he was just matched with me everywhere. Like he and I were just going back and forth. I'd give up a 10th. I'd get a 10th. He'd give up a 10th. He'd get a 10th. And we were there wasn't any real place where we were different from one another. There was one moment that got particularly hairy when the LMPs were coming through, and one of the LMPs decided to make the pass on me in the side by side in the second chicane, which had that was an opportunity for Mark, and I had to go super defensive in the first Lesmo to not give the position up. But yeah, no, he and I were just dead on same pace together the whole time. So it was yeah, it was just a matter of remaining calm as best I could.
Shifting gears and looking at next race, it's the Enduro at Laguna Seca, a track that couldn't be more different. Do you change your prep at all for the endurance events versus just the standard events at all?
Not really. I mean, I sort of treat the standard events like endurance events. When I go and practice, I'm not really just trying to find dialed in lap time. I'm trying to find consistent pace that's comfortable, that I know I can repeat over and over. So I usually do, 6 or 7 full race simulations over the course of a week leading up to the event. And so for enduros, I do the same thing. I just throw in a bunch of fuel and then go for it and try to get comfortable and tweak the setup just for comfort. And then usually out of that, the overall pace just drops out.
Well, keep doing what you're doing because it seems to be working. You've stood on the top of the podium 4 races in a row now. Good luck in the future. And anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Thank you. Jaron and Riza, if you guys are watching from Vancouver, thanks for watching. Yeah, thanks, guys.
That was Matt Steele picking up another win in that GT1 class.
Coming home P2 in the GTPs was Ezra Kelderman. Definitely saw a lot of action out there. And Ezra, we were kind of wondering, especially late in the race, whether or not there was going to be any working together to go catch Michael Johnson, because you guys fought each other quite a bit. We felt like there was a chance to maybe run him down a little easier.
Yeah, it took me a bit too long to get my act together, in this race and qualifying. So I think about mid-race, I started to really feel I had the pace to even, possibly win it. So got a little more aggressive than I usually do, and that actually ended up costing me. I got, I think, 2 slowdowns in the last 3 or 4 laps, and Yeah, there was one close moment. I about took Michael out, and yeah, just going around that traffic and trying to make that right-hander on the backstretch. But yeah, just too little, too late, and I should have set it up a little, with some more patience.
Well, you'll have more opportunities to be patient in the next race, with it being the enduro. Are you looking forward to that? Because I can't imagine 30 minutes in multi-classes. It's got to be stressful.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't even looked at the schedule, so I'm excited to hear that. I think usually in longer races, I tend to do a little better than the sprints, so probably put some more focus on, this next one, getting the setup the way I like it, and just kind of playing that long game.
Well, best of luck on that one. I believe it's Laguna Seca, so should be interesting being there a bit longer than these races, and congratulations on a podium.
Thank you so much.
Ezra Kelderman in the number 12 today, capturing his second podium, or well, second place of the season. And then behind him was BJ Fulton. Had a lot of fighting. I believe Joey has caught up with our third place finisher.
BJ Fulton, congratulations on the podium today.
Thank you. It was a hard-fought podium.
That's what everybody is saying. From watching it and commentating on it, it seemed extremely busy. Was that the same from your point of view?
Yeah, super busy. There was just a lot of incidents going on. I felt like I was dodging GT3s or getting tapped by someone. So it was just hectic the whole race. But I'm glad I came out on the podium at least.
Did you feel kind of everything was kind of compressing towards the front in those final 3 laps? Did you feel like you had a shot at it?
I did feel like I had a shot at it. I had been doing a couple practice races this week and following Johnson like that, and I passed him on the last lap both times, so I felt it coming again. But then I had to start defending a little bit from Ezra behind me, so I couldn't attack as much as I wanted to.
Well, let me ask you a final technical question. Do you think it was maybe down to the setups or down to the driving style, down to the top end speed? Where did you feel the difference really was between you three?
Well, I had a little damage from the incident in lap 2 when Dylan spun out in front of me, and so I lost a little aero performance. But before that, I had clicked up my wing just a touch, and that was getting me better exits and actually higher straight line speed at the end of the straight. So that kind of combined with the damage kind of evened it out, but I couldn't quite attack as hard as I wanted to.
Well, still, congrats on the third place finish here. It was hard fought and well deserved.
Thank you.
That was the driver of the number 82 car, Joe, BJ Fulton.
And we'll have a quick one with third place finisher in the GT1 class, Doug Baccignone. Doug, congratulations on the podium. Looked like it was a bit of race of 2 halves. The second half a little lonely, but the first one, you had a tough time trying to shake Robert there.
Yeah, Robert was all over me for the first, 4 or 5 laps. He was putting lots of pressure on. I was fortunate he made a bit of a mistake, and then I got some breathing room.
What was it like having the GTP cars coming through, though? Because from our perspective, this race looked pretty crazy at times. Did it feel like that when they were trying to lap you?
It was a little challenging. Every time they went by me, there was no one really around me in my class, so I felt like I had a little room. But there was one time when I think 6 or 7 cars passed me all at kind of one after the other, and at that point Rondo both he and I had made a mistake, and he had pitted for repairs, so I was in front of him, but he made up 4 seconds maybe. I slowed down too much, and that made me a little nervous, but I was able to just maintain the gap from there.
Well, this is 4th podium in 5 races this season for you. What's the ultimate goal this season?
Well, I'd like to be able to get a little more practice in so I could be racing with the guys up front. Maybe put a little pressure on Matt. So far, he's been kind of walking away from all of us.
Well, we'll watch out for you and see if you can give a challenge to Matt next week or 2 weeks from now. And again, congratulations on a 3rd place.
Thank you a lot, Joe. Really appreciate it.
Doug Boccignone, P3 and the GT1s. And that's going to wrap us up with a big thank you to our sponsors of the series, Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com, and Game Changer Wealth, helping you become a game changer with wealth. Also, thanks to our team today, Joey, Daniel, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. Like we said, we'll be back for our first Enduro of the season at Laguna Seca Monday, September 23rd at 10 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here. And until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
Wow.